Welcome back to another episode of Baxter's Buzz. I am your host, Baxter E. Hall. Welcome to my brain. Welcome to my frequency. Enter at your own risk. Now, today I have a special guest with me. She is an author, a publisher, a book coach, a ghostwriter, and her company is So It Is Written. Tenita Johnson. Hello, Tenita, and welcome to Baxter's Buzz.
Thank you so much for having me, Baxter.
Well, thank you for joining. We have started to build our own rapport. I have been seeing you on social media for years. When you think about it, sometimes you follow people, but you don't really connect.
Right.
It's been such a pleasure getting to know you, and also to kind of see how things how your audience has grown over the years.
It has. It definitely has. Yes.
Yeah. It's amazing to just kind of see people, even from afar. You just kind of, are kind of fans of, and so it's nice to learn more about you. And today I really want to get into a number of things, but I'm hoping that some of the stuff is some stuff I can take some notes from and steal some of your habits and tips, because you be everywhere. You be everywhere.
I'm trying to be everywhere.
So this is sort of a new sort of part of the podcast. I'm calling it sort of Muses and Mentors. So I really want to learn about part of your upbringing, some of the things that you're doing now, of course, and sort of what led you there. So, but let's start at the very, very top. You said you're trying to be everywhere. That's interesting. Tell me where you're trying to be, and tell me why it's important for you to kind of move around the way that you move around.
Yeah, so I like to tell people I am multifaceted. So of course I'm an author, book coach, publisher, all of that. But on the flip side of that, I am in the process of starting a nonprofit to help men and women heal from the effects of sexual abuse, which is a huge feat. So I have a board, I have a full nonprofit staff, and all the rest of that to get that off the ground. So while people know me for the books, the publishing, the book coaching, the authors, people call me the book bully. If you're on social media, I bully people into getting their books done in record time. But even in that, I feel like the Lord is really shifting me into a different lane, and that's helping people heal from the effects of sexual abuse, both men and women. So yeah.
And your most recent book, Hush 2.
Yes.
Can you talk about Hush, the original Hush, and then Hush 2, and some of the, there's a couple distinct differences, but just overall, can you talk about sort of the evolution between the two books and the different stories?
Yeah, for sure. So Hush, the first book is called Hush, Breaking the Cycle of Silence Around Sexual Abuse. And there are 7 women who bravely share their story of overcoming sexual abuse. Not all of them were molested as a child. Some were raped as adults. So we tackle both rape and molestation. The difference between Hush 2 is that the Lord really opened a door for me to tap into African-American males. And so there are 3 males who are highlighted in the book, Jervis Canty, Hoy Monk, and Theo. And so these men bravely chose to share their stories of being sexually abused in some form or fashion when they were children. So we have both men and women in Hush 2 versus the first one was just women. The third edition will actually be all men. So we're actually reaching out to, I don't know if you're familiar with the man who is sitting outside the house of the president of the University of Michigan to get answers of why they were sexually abused when they were on the football team, like back in the 80s. So there are many Black males who are coming forward to share their story bravely of being sexually abused or molested as a child. So yeah.
Well, it's there's courage being shown on every level. Obviously the contributors, God giving you these opportunities to help people share their stories and to heal. I just want to say like kudos to you.
Thank
It's
you.
important, anything that you create is important, but these contributions, because it's impacting and sharing the stories of so many people that I'm sure haven't really done a lot of sharing over the years,
Right.
right?
Right. And so a lot of them have not done the healing work. They haven't done the soul work. They haven't done the work that's required to kind of peel back the layers and get to the root of their anger, their bitterness. They know it's related to the sexual abuse, but they don't know how to necessarily heal from it and forgive. And so that's the mission of our nonprofit, to be able to sit in small groups, to have those hard discussions and work people through the real healing process. And so it's pivotal in this season. I'm just honored that African American males would choose to open up to me. One of the guys in Hush 2, he literally shared his story for the first time in the book. He's never shared it anywhere else. His mother didn't know, his family didn't know. Immediately he got phone calls when we came out with the book because they literally did not know. And he's 51. He's 51. So he's sharing his story for the first time. And I'm just grateful to be a caveat. I'm just grateful to be a change agent in the earth for that. Because I tell people, yeah, it happened to me, but it really happened for me. It happened for me. And I believe that in order for God to get the glory, it needs to be on a bigger scale. So thus we're starting a nonprofit around it.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And what's the name of the nonprofit?
The Monarch Circle.
The Monarch Circle. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So now let's go back. Like, how would you describe your upbringing, Tanisha?
Ooh. Raised by a single mother. I was actually born to a 13-year-old mother. So me and my mother are only 13 years apart. I was raised more so like her sister than her daughter, of course. Raised by my grandmother up until the age of 10, relocated from Chicago to Detroit. But yeah, I was raised by a teen mom pretty much, and my grandmother. Never met my father to this day. I'm 42, never met my biological father. If he walked down the street, I always tell people I wouldn't know who he is, never had a conversation, don't have a picture, never got a phone number, never got a Christmas card, birthday card, any of that. Wow. So there's a big chunk of my life that remains a mystery that I kind of like to infuse into my writing, with the assumptions that I've come up with over the years about where he is and what happened.
Yeah.
So, as a playwright and as an author, I get to infuse that into my books and my stage plays and movies and all of that. But yeah, I've never met him.
Wow. Yeah. I was telling you before we started to record, this picture of my mom. She passed away when I was 8, and I didn't deal with, not that I had a choice, but my mother's side of the family, I just didn't see as often when she passed away. And so I knew the halls, and I was around the hall. And so I had this idea of like what my mom's side of the family was, and like, this very like majestic,
what am I missing, right?
Pristine group. Cause I'm like piecing together the few little stories that I remember, and like the people, and it was like, I thought that they were just the top, cream of the crop. And there's some great people, but they're regular like the rest of us, know, but in my mind, I just, you have more access to one, the other one I had to kind of leave to the imagination. And so I probably set the bar way too high as far as who they were,
Yeah.
So you talk about your dad, and sort of not knowing him. What sort of things, when you think about your childhood, what kind of stands out to you?
Wow. Good or bad? Because there was a lot of, raised by my grandmother, thank God for her. But rumor had it I was supposed to be aborted when, Baxter, let's be real. Let's think about it. A 13-year-old girl. If I was 13, I would probably consider abortion too. It's easy to say, no, don't have an abortion. But at 12, 13, even 16 years old, you're still a child yourself. So grateful that my grandmother kind of interceded for me. But yeah, rumor had it I was supposed to be aborted. And when I think about that and what I'm doing today, it's like, I can't let my life go to waste. Every day, I'm always striving. I'm always reaching. My husband is like, can you just live in the moment? And I'm like, no, I'm the visionary in the house. I'm already into the next house that we haven't purchased yet. I'm already like into the cars that we don't have yet. He's like, can you just enjoy what we have now? I'm like, no, there's a vision and we need to get to the vision, So always reaching, always striving, just really wanting my life to be impactful in the earth and be remembered for being a caveat of change. I'm all about transforming lives. All about transforming lives.
When did that happen? Like, do you, like, as a young person, like a young child, do you remember like your thought process? Do you remember when things started to click or change? Or
so as a young child, it was very negative. Very depressed, very sad. I didn't feel like I had any worth. Nobody was telling me I'm beautiful, I'm pretty. I was the smart girl, and that was about the extent of the compliment.
You were the what?
The smart girl.
The smart girl.
The smart girl, not the pretty girl, not the beautiful girl, not the girl everybody want to take out, but you're the smart one. And so just really, really striving for identity. Not really knowing who I was, whose I was, not really knowing my purpose, not really knowing what I was in the earth to do. I literally probably just found that out probably, at the age of 30 or later, just through different tests and different trials and different small group discussions and things like that. And just discovering my passion, just tapping into the word of God and asking him, why am I really here? When you created me, what was the original intent? So, but as a child, no, I didn't know any of that. I thought the opposite. I thought I was worthless. I thought I was ugly. I thought because, we were taught that dark skin is worse than, like, the darker kid is the bad kid. And so, of course, coming up, even in the Black community, it's like the light skin versus the dark skin. It's not even, white versus Black. It's more so light skin versus dark skin. So
that's real. Yeah.
Yeah. All of those things played a part in me literally having to break down everything I thought I knew and rebuild of who God says I am, because I wasn't told that coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I it just happened to me like recently. How people say I'm not supposed to be here.
Right.
It just kind of clicked after some conversations that I had that it's actually the opposite, Tanisha. I feel like there are a million different instances and scenarios where we're not here. We are supposed to be here. And it's important for people to feel that value and feel that they have something to contribute to this world, because, it was us, and, and getting to this point, it's a huge deal. Coming,
it is.
In the Black community, some of the things I'm sure that you've seen, some things that I've experienced, it's not just a foregone conclusion that we would be in our 40s and these productive, members of society.
Sure. Yeah, and Baxter, one of the things I saw the other day, I can't think of his name. He's a motivational speaker, Caucasian guy, but he has no legs, no arms. And he's like walking across the stage, but no legs, no arms, just torso. And he said, many people see me as disabled, but if you don't know your purpose, and if you don't know your destiny, if you don't know why you're here, you are more disabled with arms and legs than I am. Yeah, and that struck with me like, whoa, we will look at a person who's disabled in a wheelchair, or, well, they can't walk, or they can't talk, or they can't. Yeah, but he's killing the game in motivational speaking now because he knows his purpose and he doesn't have arms and legs. But it's like, what? How are you even on stage? But if you don't know your purpose and you don't know your destiny, if you really don't know why you're here, we're disabled.
Yes, they're absolutely right. And it's hard to get your head around it sometimes. And I've been writing about some of these things where it's like this restlessness that you feel, you know, you just there's just something sort of this itch that you can't scratch.
Right.
You know how you
Mm-hmm.
have like, you know how the bottom of your foot be itching and you can't ever get to it. It's like,
Can't find the
dang.
source. Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what kind of, yeah, it's like, understanding that purpose. I mean, thank God, I have a better understanding of what I'm here to do. And that doesn't mean it's not going to change, but I'm
Right.
just very thankful that I finally have a clearer picture of that. So
Right.
when we talk about, we know people that have been just as talented, maybe more people that we looked up to at one point in time, but they're not here anymore. Either they're,
Yeah.
physically they're not here anymore. Maybe, they may be in prison. They may not be contributing in the way that they vision for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever think about survivor's guilt? Like,
I do. Yeah, I kind of do. But I try to turn that guilt into empowerment and use it to push forward and use it to move forward and not get stuck. Because there are people who had great dreams, great visions, who aren't here to see the manifestation of it. Um, and so I realized that we are probably the product of many people's prayers, many people's wishes, many people's dreams. To have published 19 books, looking back when I thought it was impossible to publish one, it's, you know what I'm saying? It's from a grandmother who I don't even think she graduated high school. It's just, I would love if they could see me now, that type
that's
of
right.
thing.
Yeah.
But using that as ammunition as opposed to survivor's guilt, as people call it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so David Letterman has this show on Netflix. I don't know if it was just like one season or if he's still doing it, but he basically was having his talk show on Netflix, and he had a number of guests on. And the interview a few years ago that really stood out to me was the Jerry Seinfeld interview. First of all, I think Jerry is fascinating, and he's honest, and he has a very interesting. I think a lot of comedians have this very interesting perspective on life in general.
Mm-hmm.
But they were talking about the actor Freddie Prinze, the original Freddie Prinze, who not to be confused with Freddie Prinze Jr., his son, but Freddie Prinze was this phenom, I guess, back in the 70s, and he was like a rising star. Everyone sort of knew it, and he took his own life. He was 22 years old.
Wow.
And they were sort of, kind of reminiscing about him, and Jerry talked about talent being this horse, and the way he worded it was essentially, if the way you can sort of ride this thing and figure this thing out is going to determine, are you going to be successful, or is it going to throw you off, right?
Right.
And he, when he said it, I literally was obsessed with this thought and this like this horse, like this, this imagery of like this vehicle sort of taking us from one place to another.
Right.
And I was like, well, what's my horse? Well, what do I like? What's my vehicle? And I'm on a horse, but I'm on the right horse. Like,
right. Right.
Like, could I be going faster if I was on a different horse and a different vehicle?
Right.
When you think about like your horse, like your talent, your go-to sort of the thing that sort of that you feel most strongly about, as far as your abilities, like what would that be?
For me, it's definitely writing. It's writing. Writing and editing probably run toe to toe. But even in that, I feel like God eventually is causing me to change horses because as much as I love the writing piece, I feel like eventually I'll still be under the umbrella of the So It Is Written and doing the publishing and all that. I won't be doing the tangible day-to-day work. I'll probably have a team, but I'll be more focused on the transformational work with the nonprofit. So I can see myself moving books, not for any dislike or disgruntledness toward books or publishing or authors, just because it's time to get on a different horse.
Yeah. So one of the people I thought about a lot when I started to really examine this was like LeBron James, for example. He's a pretty popular guy. And I think about like, his skill level, what he's worked on from like a basketball standpoint. Like that's his horse today. Right. But he's definitely has other ventures and other things that he's doing. And I really think that sometimes we need to just get to this destination and then change horses. And I think sometimes we get so set in what we're doing that we can't see kind of what's next. And so you talked about yourself being a visionary. You definitely are looking, are able to sort of zoom in and zoom out and kind of see what's next, which isn't always easy to do.
It's not. And it can be hard to stay focused on the present when you can see the future so clear. On the flip side of that, it can be frustrating because there are some days where I feel I'm so very close to touching the future that I can see in my vision. And then other days where it's like, how in the world is this going to happen? Yeah. How am I going to do a documentary on sexual abuse with both men and women next year? How? When? And then how do I pitch it to Netflix? Like, how do you even rationalize the process in our little minds, So
yeah. You got my mind all over the place because I feel very similarly where my thing is trying to lock in and trying to focus and making sure that I'm kind of in the moment. And then it was such a busy time for me the last several months that people were asking me questions about the future. And I was like, I really was like so locked in, but it's like I was forced to kind of look up and say, okay, well, what's next? What's going on? Right. And and it's like sometimes it's really clear. They get a little cloudy.
Right.
And you're trying to figure out, you're still going in the right direction and you see what you see. And it's just always isn't as clear because of whatever's in front of us, like today that we have to deal with and process.
Yeah.
How do you balance, because you're also very project oriented. You know what I mean? Where you can kind of lock in, like that's the superpower I don't have. And I feel like I've gotten so much better, but I'm still, that's not a strength of mine. Like, how do you go from looking at these things that are coming down the line to lock in, to write a book, to coach people to help, help them get through their books? Because that's very much like in the weeds. I don't like the weeds. Right. I'd be like, I don't know what's in there.
Right.
I like to look a lot above and try to see what's next. I have the idea, and then it's like, okay, how do I get this thing off the ground? I'm not the one that's always able to, I could put the plan together, but I'm not always the one to carry out the plan. How do you balance both? Like it's like almost two different sides of your brain.
Yeah, so for me, my husband is key in reeling me in, because otherwise I'm all over the place too. And I'm just go. It's always a green light. Just go. Just start doing the next thing. And so I have a vision for film. I have a vision for other stage productions. I've done a stage production before. There's a vision for a conference for Christian entrepreneurs, ministry in the marketplace. But I can't get so far ahead of God that I start creating a train wreck, if you know what I mean. Because we already know the word says the vision is for an appointed time. So I'm waiting for that appointed time. At the same time, I want to be careful with that because some people use that as an excuse to be lazy and slowful and say, well, I'm waiting on God. No, he's waiting on you. Like the book needs to be written and then he'll release the funds for you to publish or do whatever you need to do. Speaking of that, I'm supposed to be working on a book right now. But again, it's balancing my personal projects with the projects of my clients, because I know I'm supposed to be kicking out content. I need to make sure that I'm committed to the agreements that I sign with clients as well. So it's prioritizing that. And self-care is a big thing. Like just taking a moment in the morning, it may be 4:30, 5 o'clock, and I'm up reading the word. I have a coloring, journaling Bible. So I'm coloring in it. I'm writing what I'm grateful for. I take that time in the morning before anybody gets up to just write, listen to worship, just listen. Sometimes we get so busy that we don't take time to just listen for what's next. So that we don't make mistakes, so that we don't have missteps.
Wow. I think that as I look at this skill that you have, that I'm sharpening this tool, and yours is sharp, razor sharp, right? I'd like to think that all of this project-based stuff that you're doing is really building muscles that you're gonna need for these other things, right? Because the thing that I struggle with is I have these ideas, and I have to figure out when is the appropriate time to bring other people in to sort of help with this.
Right.
And one of the reasons I've been so consistent with like the podcast and some of those things is because I can do a lot of it on my own.
Right. But Baxter, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Right. So here's the dilemma. I don't always want to, but I can't wait either, right?
Right.
So there's a number of other projects that I'd like to do that are more collaborative. And I've talked to people about them. They're probably rolling their eyes right now when they see it. Because they're like, dang, I haven't responded, or we haven't nailed down dates or whatever. And I have these ideas, but I can't force anybody to like be as involved and like engaged as I am. So I try to focus on the projects that I know I can control on my own. Not out of spite, but out of necessity, because I still got stuff I want to accomplish.
But the other part is, are you trying to collaborate with these people because you think it's a good idea, or this is the person you know God said collaborate with this person?
I guess I'd have to examine each of these things and really, you know, spend some time.
Because there were some times where I thought I would collaborate with people on projects, and I've went to one particular person 4, 5, 6 times about doing a stage production, collaboratively writing it, splitting the proceeds, splitting the cost, all of that, and they haven't moved on it. And I had to come to the realization, is it really a good idea for us to, am I supposed to collaborate at all? Maybe this is a project God is just calling me to do as a solo project. I'm all about collaborations because I feel like we can go further, faster together. But I can't wait on you dragging your feet. And it's been 2 or 3 years and I've been asking you about this production and it's still on my heart. And it's key. It's centered around the African-American experience with mothers and daughters and why the relationships are broken. Nobody really tackles that because we're so quick to glorify Black single mothers and them being strong and them being the pillar of the community and all of the glamorous things. But what about the women? But what about the women who don't have the feel good going to the mall shopping with mom experience that we paint the picture of on Mother's Day? Like Mother's Day can be very challenging for me.
Well, now we didn't land it somewhere else. But as a man who's married to a Black woman and have dated Black women, and Black women are my friends, my family, right? It is an interesting dynamic when you think about because I think about this and I've had conversations around this. Part of it is to properly prepare my daughter for the unknown, right?
Yes.
And there's a lot of that, just instilling confidence and instilling this independence, right? But on the other end, maybe you're not able to build that bond because you're more so preparing them for something, or maybe now it's impacting their love life,
right?
Because they have been built to be able to handle it on their own. They've been prepared as a solo artist,
right?
Or they've never seen it because their mom was single.
Correct.
So they've never seen how the band play with the singers in the back. All they seen was the solo artist, and so all these things, and then then we get together and we trying to figure out how to work together, and I'm broken, you broken, and we don't we don't even have the tools yet to really so yeah, that's a really interesting, very dynamic sort of relationship, and then how it impacts
the community as a whole.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's real though.
But I'm going there, Baxter. One thing you will learn about me is that everything I've been through in my life, good, bad, or indifferent, I try to utilize it. I try to repurpose it. It may be a book, it may be a short film, it may be a documentary, but I try to repurpose it. I'm definitely an advocate for helping people overcome depression, suicidal thoughts, those things, because for a big fraction of my life, I battled with suicidal thoughts. And like you said, there are people who had millions. I mean, you think about Kate Spade, millions. You got stores internationally. It wasn't enough to keep her not from killing herself. So the mindset is, we don't value mental illness, health enough in the Black community. We don't value physical health, let alone, just based on things that we eat. But mental health, it's like an afterthought. Yeah, I'll go to a counselor for about 6 sessions and then I'm good. No, you're good until the next trigger hits.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And the 6 sessions, that's new.
Right. That's brand new. They just getting to know you. Yeah.
Right. No, I'm saying that the acceptance of that. Of even starting the sessions, right?
Yeah.
That's still very
what I love is I go to a ministry that is very small group driven. And so small groups are a way, in my opinion, to get people to go to counseling without it feeling like counseling. Because you're in a small group. It's like 8 to 10 people, so it doesn't feel like all eyes on me.
Yeah. I was just listening to something, and I was pulling some notes together for something I'm working on. I love the thought of like trying to repurpose these experiences, right?
Yes.
Wins and losses or lessons or wherever you want to, because there's something to be pulled from that. I think that sometimes we're looking at the wrong lesson though. Like I feel like I recorded a podcast. What you'll learn about me is I'm all over the place. And so I have these thoughts, and then it triggers these things that doesn't feel like it matches, and I try to pull them together. So I was thinking about like pizza, right?
Yes.
So I I can't have the dairy.
Ah.
And I also don't eat pork anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
So so pizza, pizza's different for me these days. Let's just say. And I was thinking about somebody that may have a slice of pizza and may feel sick. They may think it's the dairy. They may not realize that they have some intolerance to the pork, to the pepperoni.
Right.
They
And
may
so for
not.
me, it's the pork. I can't have the pork.
It may be the gluten. Maybe the gluten.
Right.
They don't know. They've figured it out in their head, and now it's the confirmation bias, and they're gonna make it make sense.
Right.
And they're not sitting back to truly examine what they should really be pulling from that situation. They just haven't.
Right.
It's much easier to just file it away. I think we miss there's a lot of great opportunities that we're missing out on because the work that it takes to maybe work through some of these things,
Right. It's work.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't like work. We want a quick fix.
Mm-hmm. Right. Those 6 sessions, right, of counseling. Right. Oh, we must be good. We must be, Yeah. So all these things,
until you cross another landmine.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Talk about you mentioned at the beginning, but I'd like you to unpack it a little bit more. When you think about how you want to be remembered and like your contribution, it seems that's something that you think about. You're pretty aware of. What does that look like to you? How would you like to be remembered?
Wow. So kind of like Maya Angelou. When I think about Maya Angelou, she did a lot. Her books, her poems, people have recited it for years in different venues on different platforms, different races. She has sat with presidents, she's sat with vice presidents, she's produced with Tyler Perry, she's been in movies, she literally, to me, squeezed every ounce of her gift out in the earth. And I mean, she pins some things in her poetry that will be forever remembered, forever repeated. I mean, like Still I Rise, just the poem Still I Rise. How many people have recited that, over and over and over again in different venues? And so for me, it was transformational. She wasn't just a writer, she was a transformational writer. And if you listen to the words, they were piercing both, to the soul and to the heart, to me. But she didn't just write random words. Those words had meaning. They had meaning. And her goal was to transform the world through her words. And to me, she did it. She did it. Yeah.
And that's how you want to be. That's how you want to be remembered.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think about Sammy Davis Jr. He's another person that I really want to spend time like learning more about. I think that there was a point where you would have these different skills and interests and passions, and you could do them. Mm-hmm. And then we reached a point where it felt like entertainment and just regular life where they were specializing us and you had to be this one thing, right. And it's like, oh no, you can't do that, you're doing this,
right.
And I think we have so much to give. I think you have so much to give. I think that I have so much to give, and it's probably not going to be one medium,
right.
And right. It doesn't mean that I'm going to be world renowned. It means that I have passions that I need to make. I have gifts and talents that I want to sharpen and share, regardless of what that's the thing. It's the going where we feel like God is leading us, not for any attention or fame. It's just, no, I have other things that I want to do and share and contribute.
But the key is, Baxter, like you said, we have many gifts and talents. And I mean, I think about Christmas. So my daughter always gets, God, 20 to 30 gifts. And after she opens about 8, you can't even tell where the gifts are that's unwrapped versus the gifts that are still wrapped under the tree. And so we overlook so many gifts. I just believe that there are gifts inside of us that we have yet to unwrap because we're so focused on the gifts that we have already unwrapped that we want to play with those, and she'll get stuck. Like she'll just play with this one thing, and we're like, you have 13 more gifts under the tree. You have not unwrapped, man. We spent money on this. Unwrap these gifts.
Now wait. Now I gotta ask you, who between you and your husband, who's giving who the side eye going? I told you we shouldn't have bought all those gifts.
Right. So I'm the parent that's like, they have enough. And at one point because we both grew up with, I'll never forget, I was in my grandmother's house. I went to bed with probably 5 gifts under the tree. And I was like, but when I get up, Santa's going to come and there are going to be like 20 gifts under the tree. I got up and went to the bathroom and it was them same sad 5 gifts under the tree. So at that point, it was like, oh no, it can't. So when our kids go to bed, there's nothing under the tree. When they wake up, the tree is full.
Yeah.
They know it's not Santa, but it's just the fun of it. But even still, if you relate it to how God gives us gifts, we unpack and then we get inundated with that 1 or 2 gifts that we absolutely love. Oh my God, I got the iPad. Let me just focus on the iPad. They don't care what the other gifts are, but I believe it's God's plan to unwrap all the gifts while we're in the earth. What good is it once we leave the earth if we're here on assignment and we don't unpack all of our gifts? It's not a gift until you give it away. So, yeah.
It's not a gift until you give it away. That's profound. Because how do you? Maybe you're not supposed to get all the gifts at one time, or maybe you're not. Maybe you're supposed. Maybe some of these things build on one another.
I believe it.
And we're not supposed to have all 20 at the same time because that's that restlessness, right? Going back to at the beginning, well, we don't know, where we should be going. And I think about how you feel at your best when you feel super, man, this was a great day. I'm content. I'm fulfilled. What happened that day? Spend time thinking about what that was. And figure out how to repeat it. And I think that we go from that back to whatever else, and we know it felt good, but we may not spend that time really dissecting what it was about that made us feel our hearts, and made us so, content. So, it's really about just listening to yourself, right? And spending that time in prayer, meditation, whatever, that quiet, so that you can, properly reflect. And the world's be moving so fast. We just don't always feel like we have the time for it.
Yeah. And I mean, like you said before, it's not for the attention. It's not for us to get, the glory or for our names to be great. I think that's part of it. I think that comes with the territory. If you're just walking in your greatness anyway, and the world begins to recognize it, but long before that, God has already confirmed the greatness within. So I just believe it's up to us to tap into the greatness within. And I tell people, get in your lane and burn rubber in your lane. Don't look to the right or to the left. Just like when horses are races, they have on blinders, and we have to put on blinders. Take social media off your phone. it's 10% of a person's life that they choose to post, and you are in a dark hole because you couldn't go to Disney World this year for Christmas. I mean, literally, that's how quickly social media can like change our psyche. So I tell people, just come off of it altogether if you have to for a season. Because if you're basing your life on what you see on social media, what did we do before social media?
Okay, so all the podcasts I recorded, you didn't this week, you didn't touch on. So
okay, great.
So this is my brain. I'm looking at the sun. I open up the blinds, it's beautiful, sun shining.
Yes.
I look at the temperature, says 28 out there.
It's cold.
I said, that's social media.
Right.
I said, that sun is social media. That sun is saying everything great. That ain't real. That's not real life. That's only
part of that's a part of it. That's a part of it. Right.
And people are posting, I talked about people posting their highlights and us comparing our whole life
to that highlight. Yeah.
It's no wonder we anxious and depressed.
Yeah.
Because we're not looking at it with the proper perspective, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
you as a person have to know when it's time to, I call it silencing the noise. It's okay. Take the apps off your phone, take it off your computer. You can leave your page up if that's what you feel like you need to do. Sometimes I go in and I actually deactivate my pages dark because I cannot, and it's still so much of our time. Much of our time that we can't produce at the level we're supposed to be producing at.
Right. We're looking at everybody else produce.
Right.
We become consumers only.
Mm-hmm.
And we're watching these people produce stuff that we want to do.
Right. Yeah.
All right. This is why you have these conversations. All right, let's wrap. I think about what you just said about getting in your lane and burning rubber. I love that.
Yeah.
How do you know? So if someone's looking at this and they're like glued to this conversation because of these are things that they've been dealing with, struggling with.
Mm-hmm.
How does someone kind of figure out what their lane is if they don't know, Tenisha?
I think the biggest thing is, knowing what drives you and what are you passionate about. And I always ask people, what would you do for free if nobody was paying you? If nobody was paying me, I'm empowering authors all day, every day, twice on Sunday, 8 times a day. I'm texting people, calling people, hey, what's going on with your book? They're not paying me to do that.
No.
But because I care and because I want you to get your book out into the earth, and I know you have a great story, I'm following up. Like I'm your secret accountability partner. So the things that you would do for free, that's probably one of your gifts that you should tap into and get in that lane and burn rubber. I feel like a lot of people want to be coaches. They want to be life coaches, business coaches. That's good, but have you really mastered? For me, a coach has to be a master. I need to know that you have results. Not that you went through the process, but do you have results on the other end?
Mm-hmm.
And so I would tell people, what do you do that nobody else does like you? Now, somebody else is book coaching, but they don't do it like I do it.
Right.
Because when I do it, I'm all about creating 7 to 12 different of income from that one book that you have. Like Hush, you see Hush. Hush will be a documentary. If I can do a stage play, audio book, physical book, ebook, 7 to 12 different streams of income just from one book. So that's what sets me apart. But literally, people have to know like their incredible factor, their wow factor. You have to find what drives you. And for me, it's the written word, because I know the written word, if it's transformed my life, it has the power to transform others. Books have literally shifted the trajectory. When I was battling with forgiveness, it was one line in one book that was like, forgiveness is not a process, it's a decision.
Mm.
And I was like, whoa, it's a process because you tell yourself it's a process. It's a decision. Make a decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I know the power of books and words give life. They give life or death. But I like to use my pen to give life.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Um, I want to push back a little bit on a part of what you said. As far, I feel like you're more evolved than some people are, and you've identified your lane, right? And I'll say this because I believe it. Sometimes it's not about trying to determine what we do better than other people. We got to first figure out what we feel like we do better, like what we do best
what we do
internally.
best.
Yeah. And then we can see how it maybe stacks up. But the first thing is really that self reflection. And sometimes people start peaking too early.
Too early, yeah.
About what other people are doing, but they don't have their stuff together yet.
Right.
You know what I mean? But
Right.
I agree wholeheartedly as far as like.
And the other thing is, I tell people, Baxter, what can you do to literally have the greatest level of impact and transformation on others? Not income, but impact. Because it has to be about impact and transformation. Because even when the money isn't coming, otherwise, you're going to want to quit if it's just about income.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Yep.
Tell us the name of the nonprofit again.
The name of the nonprofit is the Monarch Circle. So it's kind of a play on words. So the monarch butterfly, but also the monarch king of kings, because we will be serving both men and women. So we went with the Monarch Circle. It'll be a combination of small groups, special events. We'll be doing different events around the city, but the premise of the Monarch Circle is to have pockets of small groups having the discussion around sexual abuse in many different areas, running simultaneously.
That's amazing. And then the your publishing, writing, book coaching segment. Tell me what that is, what the name of the company is.
Yep. So the name is So It Is Written, and people can find out more at soitiswritten.net, or they can go to my personal website, tenitajohnson.com.
There it is. This was a amazing conversation. I am so thankful that we've been able to talk and connect, and
yes,
I can learn more about you and your story. I feel like I really want like another hour, but we don't have the time.
Bring me back, Baxter. Just bring me back next year. Yeah.
I just want to say just congratulations for all the work that you're doing, for all the people that you're inspiring. Thank you for inspiring me, truly. And to the audience out there, I want to let everyone know that you are capable, and to still Tenita's line, you have to find your lane and then burn rubber. But it's important to embrace your own frequency. On behalf of Tenita, I am Baxter E. Hall. Thank you so much for watching and supporting. Please like, subscribe, share wherever you are, if you're listening or if you're watching. The continued support is appreciated. And until next time, peace.